Hello, my name is James Stokes, Chief Appraiser of the Paulding County Tax Assessor's Office. I'd like to talk to you today about the upcoming Notice of Assessment. The annual Notice of Assessment is our information that we send out to property owners that's required by state law. And what it does is it informs property owners of what their current fair market value is and any exemptions that they're receiving. We've got a staff of 23 that currently value all property in the county in accordance with state law. State law requires that all assessment offices across the state value property within 10% of what they're selling for. So every year we're having to go in and adjust property values up and down based on what they're selling for. The annual Notice of Assessment will be mailed going out Friday, May 30th. If property owners are not happy with their current fair market value or an exemption, they'll have until July 14th to file a written appeal with our office. If you miss the deadline to file an appeal with our office, you'll miss your deadline for the appeal, and we will not be able to honor any appeal rights for the year. Yes, last year Georgia law was changed, which required a different notice of assessment. The upper part of the notice of assessment is relatively the same. However, that lower part has some changes in it. What the notice used to show was an estimated tax at the bottom of the notice. What has changed is the estimated tax has been replaced with an estimated rollback rate, which is an estimate of what governing authorities feel like their millage rate may be for the upcoming year. It used to be that the estimated tax contained all line items for the school, county, cities, for their maintenance and operations, as well as the fire and bond taxes. The new Notice of Assessment only lists the county and school and cities maintenance and operation line items. Those are some of the most frequent questions that we have. Number one is the owner listing on that Notice of Assessment. We generally have questions of, I don't see my name on the assessment notice. That doesn't mean that we don't have it in our system. There's just simply not enough room to print all of the owners that's on a recorded deed. The account number is similar to any other account number you may have. It is like your account number with your banking statement. It's a number that stays with your property and contains all the history of the record. Yeah, that property ID number, that is a map ID. That contains the geographic location as far as the new GIS systems that we have. Acreage is the amount of deeded acreage that property owners own. So if your deed says you have a half acre, that's what that number would reflect on that Notice of Assessment. So your tax districts, we have, I believe there's 5 tax districts. Those are going to be your county, City of Dallas, City of Hiram, City of Bridesville, and then Dallas has a special TAD district. What a TAD is a couple years ago, the City of Dallas put before their local voters a tax allocation district. They have a redevelopment that they are currently underway within the city limits of Dallas, and that describes a specific area where funds are being allocated off to fund that development. That covenant year, if property owners have enrolled in the statewide conservation use program, that's going to list the first year that that program was initiated by the property owner. Your homestead exemption, that contains your state exemptions, your local exemptions, your school tax exemptions for persons over 65. So that field will show like an S1 or an L8, and you can go to our website and you could look up what each one of those codes mean. Once again, if you go to the Paulding.gov website, under the Board of Assessors tab, you'll see homestead exemptions. We have extensive information on that website, and you can see exactly what that code means and to ensure that you're getting the right exemption for whatever you may qualify. Properties that are in a subdivision, it'll list out what the subdivision name is, what lot number it is. If you're in a rural area, it will just say real property. Property address, of course, that's your location. That is your location address that's assigned by the county. The 100% value is nothing more than, if we've got $300,000 on a property, that's what you're going to see in that line item. The 40%, under Georgia law, property owners only pay tax at the 40% of value. So it's nothing more than 40% of the actual value of the property. Nope, absolutely not. We get that question a lot. Property owners will only pay property tax based on that 40%. You do not, when you're appealing the fair market value. You're not appealing the combination of the both. Georgia law requires that that assessment notice have both of those numbers. So your return value is let's say a property owner feels like their value is $100,000. So that's what you would see there. And that number right below there is nothing more than the 40% of that. The previous year value would be the value from last year's digest, whether it be through an appeal or just you didn't appeal it. That's going to be your previous year's. That current year value is what owners really need to pay attention to. That's the current value that our office has placed on a property, and that's the value that property owners really need to take heart in of, is my property really worth what they're saying that current year value is? So your market value is, if I were to put my property up on the market, could I reasonably expect to get this for my property? That one is another one that is highly confusing. That is your conservation use value. So property owners that have entered their property in a 10-year statewide conservation use program, that is the current land value of that conservation value. That reason for the assessment notice is to give property owners a general idea of changes that have been made to their property since last year. We can show where a homestead has been applied, where a homestead has been removed, where the market value has been updated. If changes, say a house has been added, that's where you would see line items like that. So at the bottom of the notice, where you would normally see that tax estimate to the far right, you still see all the various columns. You'll see no more than 3 line items. It will be the school M&O, county M&O, and one of the cities. So you'll see your other exemptions. That's going to be the exemption for conservation use. That's how much that conservation use is saving in value on your property. You'll have your homestead exemptions. That's the value that is being reduced for you having a homestead exemption. And then it'll lead to a net taxable. That net taxable is based on the fair market value at 40%, minusing any exemptions that you may have. That's what the millage rate would be applied to. So your floating homestead exemption was approved by voters last November. So when you look at that notice of assessment down at the bottom where it has the homestead exemption and it has that amount in there, so the floating homestead exemption is theoretically embedded. So if you had a value increase and you had a homestead exemption last year, you've got a homestead exemption this year, that increase in value shows up as an exemption in the notice of assessment. Yes. Yep. So the floating homestead exemption is in every single homestead that's out there, whether it's a standard, whether it's an elderly exemption or a disabled veteran. That floating homestead exemption is in addition to all your other exemptions you get. So it's an enhancement to the property owners and will actually reduce their net taxable value. So your maintenance and operation is a tax levy that's imposed by all the governing entities. It's your maintenance and operations. That's what they use to fund the day-to-day operations of their jurisdictions. You have a bond tax that is approved by voters. You have a fire tax that is approved by voters. And then of course you have your city taxes as well. Absolutely. With the change in the assessment notice, we felt like we needed to do as much as possible to inform property owners of what is this assessment notice and what does it mean to me. So on the back of every single assessment notice, we've printed out a brief summary, breaking it down step by step what each one of those fields are. If a property owner has lost or they simply did not receive their notice of assessment for whatever reason, we have all of our notices up on our website. It's very easy to get it. If you can't get it or you're not very familiar with using the internet, by all means, call our office. We will have you a notice sent out, delivered, however we need to get it to you. They really need to contact our office. I encourage everybody, do not miss that July 14th deadline, because that's what we need to open up that review. So if you disagree with that fair market value, maybe you think it's a little less, maybe you think it's a little more, then you would want to file an appeal. You definitely don't want to miss that July 14th deadline. So we have extensive appeal information up on our web. You can file an appeal online, you can send it in on fax, you can drop it into our office, you can mail it, but you want to make sure that you have proof that our office has received your appeal. They can contact our office. They really don't need to. Make sure you do not miss that appeal deadline. We have staff that are able to answer any questions whatsoever about the properties. You can send us an email, give us a call, and we will have information available and we'll get whatever property owners need. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't let sticker shock get to you. Every year we have an influx of property owners calling with the simple questions. Just take time, look up the information, see if it's right. And if there's any questions, by all means, contact our office and we'll do whatever we need to get your questions answered.